Hello, this is Jon Bale, the BFE's Research Manager, and this is a brief review of Zukor's Grind and the different features we can play around with and how best to use it. Now, Zukor's Grind is a two-monitor game, and so that means that the main monitor is what the clinician gets to look at for statistics, as I'm showing right now, and the second monitor is what the client looks at for the actual game aspect. What I'm currently showing is one of the default heart rate variability training features for Zukor's Grind. It should look quite familiar to what you might have seen in some thought technology or BFE suites. At the top left, you can see the green bar graph, which represents the low frequency percent of total power, and that's what we're trying to bring up, while keeping down those purple and yellow bar graphs for very low frequency and high frequency. In terms of what the client's actually looking at, they're only able to see their skateboarder character as he or she rolls around the choice level and performs tricks according to whether they're correctly self-regulating or not. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that green bar, which is slowly shrinking right now. That in this particular example represents the low frequency percent of total power. And so once the client stops correctly self-regulating such that the low frequency goes below the set threshold, their little skateboarder character stops moving and they no longer gain points as quickly. This game really does reinforce the idea of heart rate variability or neurofeedback training, because they really want to get their character to move forward, they want to amass points, they want the tricks to happen and see more effects. Now, as the client continues to self-regulate a little bit better, we can see the green bar graph is slowly growing. It's going to cross that black threshold, and there we go. The skateboarding character begins again and continues to move. On the left and right sides, you can see there's a purple and yellow bar graphs as well. Those, in this particular example, those represent the very low frequency on the left and high frequency on the right. And as long as those are kept below the little black thresholds, then the skateboarder character continues performing these special tricks at certain moments depending on the level, and again they keep gaining more points. Now, the game is quite entertaining because, as you're seeing, there's a whole bunch of little background things and features that are moving around that help keep the attention of the player. I've currently set to a lot of these features to the highest level, but we'll see an example later on when I turn them down a bit. Right now is an example of one of the default neurofeedback training screens that come with Zukor's Grind. Again, the setup looks very familiar to some suites you may have seen before. The green bar graph is what we're trying to increase. In this case, it's actually SMR. And then the two other bar graphs we're trying to inhibit, in which case they are low and high artifacts. You can actually set these to whatever you want. This is what I've just set them in this example. And we see all the typical monitoring features that we want to see in a normal training screen, whereas again the client is seeing just the skateboarding character and trying to get points. In the example right now, I want you to see how many different features there are in the game. In this example, I've actually turned up the number of feedback displays and background features and little animation-y things to almost maximum. And so we're getting every possible effect. There's some bubbles every time the person's in condition, which is pretty much the whole time right now. All these added little objects, graffiti, cool points and words that pop up whenever he performs a trick correctly. This is how you can see all the maximum choices that are possible right now. By comparison, I've actually, in the next example, which is coming on, I've turned down these selectable features to almost non-existent. And so I really want you to get the idea that you can really tailor a type of game session for the client. So if you think it might be too intense or too distracting, you can take away a lot of these features and make the game a little bit simpler, less jarring, and essentially a little bit more boring. And so they'll be interested, but just not too artificially interested. As a quick example of sort of middle ground right now, I've turned on only a few of the background features and tricks and extra settings. So you still get the points popping up whenever the character performs a trick. You can see buildings in the background. You can see some extra features that keep things interesting, but it's just not going to be overwhelming or too much for the player. Similarly, as you continue training with this particular client, you can actually switch around some of these features. So they're always going to have a different collection of things to look at. So it keeps it interesting, keeps the novelty aspect up without being too artificially intense or attracting. If any of you are interested in learning more about this game, feel free to email the BFE at shop@bfe.org.